If you've been waiting for your chance at an Nvidia RTX 3080, Nvidia just announced possibly the next best thing concerning the 3080. You're going to want to hear this because it could actually make a huge difference to gamers everywhere. Let's talk about what it is. Hey guys, Tiago here with Classical Technology. Remember to subscribe and like if you enjoy content on GPUs, PC hardware, water cooling. We like to do all of it. So let's talk about the subject for today. As we all know, the GPU drought has been really terrible, and when GPUs are available, like now, you can pick here or there and actually find some stuff in stock. The prices are outrageously expensive. Nvidia knows that, and they know the damage that does to the gaming brand on that side. Of course, if it's going to be popular for crypto mining, those are always going to sell regardless of what people think of Nvidia or AMD, because there people really just want to get the best, most profitable GPU. But when it comes to PC gaming, if gamers have to pay exorbitant amounts in order to get their hands on a GPU, it's not going to bode well for the future of PC gaming. They're going to end up switching to possibly consoles, or maybe just playing on their older hardware, which is going to suffer a little bit in terms of their graphics and things like that. So why is this important? Nvidia today announced, and this is going to be an RTX 3080 level performance of their Geforce Now experience. Now, what this is basically the streaming service, and I actually have it running right back here, and this is not even running on a PC. This is the point of it. That's running actually on a Mac. That's a Mac Pro right there. And of course, for comparison, I do have an RTX 3090. That's my main system, but regardless, Geforce Now can run on any system. This is going to be important because Nvidia says that now with this new RTX 3080 sort of a tier that they're calling it, the priority tier, this is going to be faster than even an Xbox Series X. So for all of those people that were thinking about going to consoles, maybe picking up a PS5 or an Xbox, this is going to be performance that's going to be able to beat that. Now, of course, with any type of, streaming service like this, there are going to be a lot of caveats, things that you have to know. For example, you are going to need a pretty fast internet connection, maybe around 35 megabytes per second. Now, not everybody's going to have this. Some people live further out, or maybe their connection's not as good. And while you can play on sort of connections that aren't nearly as fast, especially if you want to experience this tier, the RTX 3080 tier of level performance, you're definitely going to have some trouble to get the full low latency and high graphical experience. Now, Nvidia does have a couple of different tiers of their Geforce Now experience that's already available. The first and basic one, you basically get to play on something like an RTX or a GTX 1060 level performance, and when you're on that free tier, basically you're going to have more limitations to the session length, or basically how much you can actually game, and different things about like queue positions and things like that when you can get in. If you step up to the priority tier, you're going to have maybe like a 2080 level performance, and you're going to have more access to playing more session hours and things like that. Now, with this RTX 3080 level that they're going to announce, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to be around $99 for a 6-month membership, compared to around $49.99 for the priority membership. And oddly enough, if you're a priority member now, you will get sort of early access and more priority to this RTX 3080 tier. So I guess that's the way they kind of like wheel you in, but still $99 is much cheaper than what you're going to be paying for an RTX 3080 if this works the way that they want. So this level tier, you're going to have many more session hours. You're going to have more priority for the queue. That's just basically your place in line to play these games. And of course, you're going to have access to 3080 level performance instead of just a 2080. That means that you're going to have ray tracing. RTX will be enabled. You're going to be able to do that. Not only that, you're going to be able to do high refresh gaming. Even if you put it on a Mac or any system that's slow, you're going to be able to do like 120 frames per second. It's going to do 1440p if you're playing it on one of these apps. Now, if you're going to be using the Nvidia Shield, which is basically their Android streaming little device, almost like Apple TV but for Android, if you use the Nvidia Shield, you'll be able to do it in 4K. So if you have a 4K TV, you could technically be playing on like 3080 level servers and basically stream your library of games, do whatever you want. I was actually playing Cyberpunk 2077 before, and even with a little bit of a dodgy internet connection, and this isn't even the RTX 3080 tier, this was just a priority tier, it was working actually really well, very enjoyable. Now, I would not recommend this for a really competitive like FPS game where every little second counts, every little microsecond, because you do have some lag. It's not 100% like having a GPU there, because of course the server has to talk to the Nvidia server has to talk to the game, bring all that information back to your computer. So even though it's very low latency and they even say it's going to perform better than an Xbox Series X, it's still not going to be the best for like really competitive gaming. But I guess the good news there is that generally esport titles don't need as beefy of GPUs. Generally you can get away with 1080p and just having a GPU that's going to be able to handle high frames in one of those games. Typically people need very powerful GPUs for 4K or very intensive games, like Flight Simulator or even Cyberpunk 2077. So definitely very interesting. I mean, that's pretty high performance, high frame rates, ray tracing. You're going to be able to do 1440p or 4K if you have the Nvidia Shield, and you can play it literally on anything. It's going to be able to run anything because the graphical performance is actually being streamed to your computer from the server. Now, there have been a few streaming services aside from Nvidia that really didn't do too well, like the Google Stadia. It really just never got off the ground. The experience really wasn't that great. So we're going to have to see if this particular Nvidia tier could be an answer to all of the problems that people are having. I think Nvidia knows that the RTX 3080 is pretty much the most popular, or at least the most legendary GPU from the RTX 3000, because let's face it, at $699 when it came out, performance was really mind-boggling for what you were getting. Typically, that type of performance came with a $1,200 price point, as we see the 3080 Ti now, and that's really barely any faster than the 3080. So 3080 is the GPU that's the hardest to get. I mean, I've seen very few of them. 3070 even has been easier. Of course, 3090s, because of the price, has been easier to get. I see a lot of my viewers have been able to get them. 3080 has been kind of a rarefied beast, especially recently. So for Nvidia to brand this the 3080 sort of tier of GeForce performance, that shows you they're very much in tune with how in demand something like an RTX 3080 is. When you think of great performance and reasonable great performance, you think of a 3080. Of course, a 3080 and a Ti or a 3090 does have a little bit better performance, but 3090 is more of like a hybrid content creator gaming GPU. 3080 Ti does not really have anywhere near the price to performance that a 3080 has. So this, I think, is a pretty good sort of mascot, if you will, for Nvidia service. Now, even playing on the priority tier, if you have a pretty good connection, if you're playing a game like an open world type of game, an RPG, even if it's graphically intensive, definitely pretty decent of an experience. I mean, like I said, the only way you're going to really find any complaints is if you try to play a very low latency, fast FPS competitive game or something like that, then you'll probably notice a difference. But for most games that are enjoyable, you just want to enjoy the hardware, the graphics, especially with ray tracing, you're going to be able to do that. To be able to have this, and if it really ends up working well, that's going to be pretty good, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people that don't necessarily want to go to console, but they either can't find or they don't want to budget for a much more expensive GPU, and that's very understandable. Prices have been out of control, and it's hard to find the right one. This is something that could potentially still give them the gaming experience. At the end of the day, when you're behind a monitor like this, and if the game looks great, if it's performing great without being laggy, it's not going to matter, actually, probably to most people, where the actual performance is coming from, either inside your tower or from one of Nvidia's server. If that performance is close enough to the real world and if it looks good enough, that's really at the end of the day what's going to matter the most. Now, even though this is sort of still the infancy of this type of technology, we could actually see this be extremely huge and important for the future. Look at it this way. If you want to watch a movie, isn't it easier to just turn on your, Apple TV or your streaming box and stream the movie immediately? Now, even though that's still a little bit different than PC gaming, still having a service that provides you the power, the content is already basically streamed or you download it. Like if you buy a game on Steam, rarely you're going to get a game case or the CD or the DVD like you used to before. It's going to be a downloadable library that's tied to your account. So having the hardware be basically the same thing, that's just the next tier, the next level performance. Now, I don't know what Nvidia's profits would be if everybody jumped into the streaming system. Let's say if it was really that good. limited compared to selling hardware, but at least probably manufacturing side of things would ease up a considerable amount, because then Nvidia just has to worry about the servers and then the code and engineering keeping the system secure and functioning properly. So in the future, this sort of GeForce Now, this on-demand gaming for not only the content, the game titles that you want to play, but also streaming the hardware. I mean, that's definitely pretty crazy. If you can get a very similar performance, and I think as time goes on, performance and latency is going to get better and better, graphics are going to get better and better, this could actually alleviate a lot of issues for people. So imagine if you have an older computer, even if you have a Mac or even, maybe a phone, you could actually stream and play games directly to that, regardless of the hardware that you have, and you're still going to be getting as best as you can the performance from that game with ray tracing, with high frames per second. Of course, it still helps if you're playing in a decent monitor and you're playing in a decent keyboard and mouse. That's going to help the overall experience, but technically you're going to be able to stream really high performance games with these tiers much more easily. Definitely going to keep an eye on this. Very interesting that Nvidia has sort of upgraded that tier. Let's see if it sparks interest in this sort of GeForce Now experience, and I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below if this is something you're going to use. I'll probably have more content on this as it comes out to see if it's really worth it. I'll definitely let you guys know, and in the meantime, remember to subscribe if you like the video. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video.